Adequately timeless. Beats me, man. Yeah, this is. All right, I come to you today, or this afternoon, with more of an experience that kind of influenced me to who I am today and how I go about acting. I say my speech is called Adequately Timeless because the experience I had on the Appalachian Trail is exactly that, adequately timeless. I'm going to put a mental image in your minds. Now, just bear with me. This might seem a little far-fetched for some of you who are not necessarily out there in the nature world or not as involved with that side of the aspect of life. On this trip, I was sitting upon a tree. Beneath the tree, I look up in the stars, and the stars are twinkling so bright, so vibrant. A gust of wind comes across my face. Now, to many of you, you can feel a gust of wind, but can you really hear what a gust of wind sounds like? To me, that kind of fascinated me. A gust of wind, I didn't really understand how it sounded, but it really kind of fascinated. And let me tell you, I wasn't on drugs, so I'm not way out there in the tree-hugging world. But some sensation came over me where it was a tingling feeling. And I'm getting tingles just telling you the story. Because when I saw those bright stars above me and the trees blowing, speaking to me, a whole revelation of who I am today just exploded. I'll go into 3 different topics about my experience on the Appalachian Trail. I'll go why I do the Appalachian Trail, the experiences I have on the Appalachian Trail, and why it's so practical in today's setting, and the people you meet on the Appalachian Trail. I'll go into all 3 details and explain to you why getting back to nature is so vital in today's society. So many of you ask me, you're at a military college, but you pose such a tree-hugging attitude when you leave the school. And absolutely, why not? I go out in the woods because society is so plagued by these complex dynamics of politics. I mean, how many times have you just told your friends or told anyone, I am just so sick of politics. I'm just so sick of society right now. Just get me out of here. Or just from the way we look, to fat shaming, to anorexia, to just self-esteem issues. All that stuff, it all goes away if you go out into the nature, at least if you really connect out in nature. And that's where I found my experiences out on the AT really relevant. Because when I'm out there on the trail with nothing bothering me, the suck is so prevalent on the rainy days to the highest of highs on the clearest nights upon the stars. It's just, when you're sitting upon the stars, nothing at all crosses your mind. It's you and everything else within the woods. Experience. The experience is like no other. You're going to meet people like no other. Part of the reason I love going out in the woods is because I can tap into some thoughts that I necessarily can't tap into, like in a society today that we live in, and especially here at the Citadel. Some thoughts that get so deep. I mean, I started poetry out in the woods, out on the Appalachian Trail, and you can ask any of my buddies within the barracks here at school. I do not seem like the person who writes poetry. I am subpar average in English, okay? I just can't write papers. But for some reason, that deep thought out in the woods drove me to poetry, and I wrote the most beautiful pieces within my lecture, or my book that I call it a lecture, because some things I write in there turn out to be a lecture. But point aside, it's just so empty out there, and the experiences you gain, Someone told me out on the trail, you're talking to real people, you're learning new things. It doesn't necessarily matter how you're learning it. Now, there was a skill out there. Last semester, I gave a 17-minute speech. I'd never been camping before, needless to say. I went out camping, and I learned everything from that point on about camping. My most experience was camping in the backyard, but now I consider myself above average camper. So the experiences you gain, you're just talking to real people, and it's so beneficial to someone to just gain these experiences and see the opposite side of life and things on the Appalachian Trail. Now getting into the people, this is where kind of the story gets really interesting. I've met people who are strung out on the trail, who definitely put a different perspective into my mind, to people of high education, doctors, single moms, just the whole spectrum. And that's kind of what I want to hone in on. It doesn't take a certain personality to go walk out in the woods. It can be you. It could be you. It could be literally anyone. Because I saw an old woman out in the woods. She was a professional for 26 years. And I come around the corner, it's Easter Sunday, and she comes up, and not knowing it was Easter, because we were just so far into the woods at that point, I come around the corner and she says, "Happy Easter, boys." And I'm like, right on, that's Easter Sunday. And the next thing she says really sticks with my mind. Her trail name was Vicodin Mama. The reason her name was Vicodin Mama was because when she said Happy Easter, she just prayed to God that the Easter Bunny would put Vicodin and Easter eggs along the trail so she could have them and just get to a separate dimension. She was so real, it wasn't even funny. And then I met a middle-aged man, a doctor, and 43 years old, single, no kids, no family. He told me, and this kind of resonates with me still today, he found his life more complete and, let's say, he felt less lonely out in the woods than he does in the middle of Manhattan. Now, that didn't really make sense to me, because when you say you feel less lonely in Manhattan than you do out in the woods, it's the nature touching him. It's Mother Nature touching him. He literally dropped everything. He quit his six-figure job to go out on a walk and just said, screw it, I'm walking. I'm walking. And he ended up finding his wife on the trail. Don't ask me how it happened, but it happened. But it was such a unique experience. I woke up the next morning and I saw two gentlemen walking out who I shared memories of my past, just everything from my childhood experiences to where I am today, explaining the Citadel and all that, all what we do here at school. And it ends up, these two gentlemen were prior inmates in a state penitentiary. Now, he basically came out and told me, I'm not going to steal any of your stuff because I don't want to carry that stuff 2,200 miles. Now, getting back to why I named this speech Adequately Timeless, because that time out in the field is truly adequately, it was an adequate time for me to go out in the woods. And that time spent out in the woods was complete peace and just, it was almost like time wasn't moving. It was just, I was in the moment and I was there. Nothing else mattered. That gust of wind came across my face and I started realizing, wow, that's what a gust of wind sounds like. And time just kind of stood still. It didn't really matter how much time I had to go back to school. It didn't matter where I was going to be in 2 years. It didn't matter. It just, nothing mattered. It was adequately timeless.